Namaste to all our viewers in Bharat and outside of Bharat. Welcome to yet another episode of the show presented by Kala, crazy about literature and arts in association with Let's Talk. Let's Talk creates safe and reflective spaces for meaningful conversations, spaces where we connect, listen, and grow together. This episode is also being recorded and will be shared on the YouTube channel of Kala at Sanjay Chandra 5376. Please subscribe to the channel to view more such episodes. Our guest tonight is Kavita Aneeta Sharma, and let me give welcome to the show, Anita ji. Let me give a
Thank you.
let me give a very brief introduction of Anita ji. Anita Sharma has the roots in Himachal Pradesh and hails from a family steeped in military traditions. She is an educator by profession with 28 years of teaching experience. She has contributed to international and national poetry anthologies, and her book has been published by Kitab International, Indian periodicals, Om International, Visual Verse, the Alif Review, and Setu on their platforms. Her short story titled Making Music was the winner in short story contest by House of Harmony 2025. Her blogs appear under the Random Musings at Times of India. She is currently a member of Council for Global Education, Women's Education Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shiothi World. Welcome, Anita ji, to the show. It's such a privilege.
Thank you.
So let's begin our conversation. You have been an educator for almost now 30 years. I wanted to understand from you is that do Indian teachers get the recognition and credit that they deserve and which they used to get in ancient India?
Okay, now that's a tough one. Ancient India, yes, gurus were revered. But in the contemporary times, I think generally people have started taking teaching as a profession. And usually the parents' attitude is that, okay, we are paying for our child's education. So, in a way, we are paying the teacher. So, we're just getting services in return. So, somewhere that respect which was there for the guru, that whatever the guru says and does is the gospel truth. There can be nothing beyond it. That has changed. That attitude has changed. People want to question the teacher. They want to argue with the teacher when they feel that the child is not getting his due or her due, and they feel that they are at par with the teachers, and not that the teacher is on a pedestal high up and needs to be admired in that way. So that has changed. Definitely, it has changed. Teaching
Is that,
now is just a profession.
is that change for a better or for a
No,
worse?
no, definitely. No, I don't think it is for the better because I feel that if you let the teacher, if you give the teacher to a certain extent the authority to guide the child and help the child, the result is much better. But if you keep interfering at every point and telling the teacher that no, my child needs to be treated like this because he or she is like this, then the overall result is like, there's a chef who's cooking in the kitchen, and then somebody else comes and keeps telling him that no, add this, no, not this much, just this much more. Then the thing is not going to come out as good as if the chef had been given that independence. And I
So,
think there has to be mutual trust between parents and teachers that at the end of the day, what the teacher will do for the child will be for the best.
hmm, hmm, hmm. So, do you think today in India, a young professional will look at teaching as a good career option or his first option, so to say?
Not at all. When I used to be teaching the senior secondary classes, I used to talk to children, discuss with them that what do you want to do in life? And not a single child said that he wanted to become a teacher. And that is, I think, pan India, it's everywhere. Youngsters want to do anything other than teaching, it's a last choice. When they don't get a job anywhere else, then they say, okay, teaching is the path which we will choose. So
Mhm.
that preference is not there.
Mm. Is there anything that needs to be done to change this aspect? Because if your teaching profession does not attract a bright talent, then the future of coming generations is always going to be a question mark.
Definitely, because like we used to also interview teachers, and at times we were invigilating when the teachers to be were coming for the exams, CTET and all those exams, and we found that the quality of candidates was certainly not up to the mark. I mean, we couldn't think of them as the ones who would groom our children or our children's children, in the future. So I think a lot of incentive needs to be given to this particular profession, and it has to be like, people say that in the corporate you work so many hours, so teachers should also work so many hours. But then give them that kind of respect and that kind of privileges and that kind of emulation also, that kind of a salary also, so that they actually consider themselves at par with the corporate. So the work is at par, but everything else is not.
But
So
why
I
is
think
it
that
that
needs
the
to.
salary, why is it that the salary or the compensation for the teaching community has not kept pace and it has not risen the way it has, for example, risen for all other professions?
I really wouldn't know why it has. It ought to rise. That is what I feel. It should rise. Why it has not risen? Probably because people take it for granted. There are so many schools and so many teachers, so many aspirants for the job, that
Mm,
something which is not so much, got lots of candidates, and it is not something which is rare and
mm,
not like, an IIT. That is something which is not. Everybody can't do it, and
mm,
very few people will get there. It's a pinnacle. Very few people reach that point, so then that is kept at a very high level.
mm.
But for teaching, every second third person can get a BEd degree and apply for a teaching job, so there's so many candidates, so probably the importance
Yeah.
reduces.
One more aspect that I wanted to understand from you is that today almost all walks of life are getting disrupted with the new technology, the AI. What is the impact of AI on teaching profession, and how do you expect in, let's say, next 5 years, teaching profession will change?
Actually, it has already changed with the COVID. Actually, technology first entered into the teaching world. And you would be surprised, like when we were working online, we were teaching online, children would just give us answers which were copy pasted from Google. And
Hmm.
we knew they were wrong answers, they were incorrect answers, and the same answer would be repeated by 20, 30 children.
Hmm.
And they would, like switch into a class and then walk out. It would show that they're logged in, but they were not attending. So
Hmm.
those are the disadvantages we faced during COVID. And if AI and this technology is going to continue the way it is, I
Hmm.
think education is going to become a real challenge, because that small percentage of children who are really focused, and they know that we have to get the best out of this and we have to study, otherwise we'll not get anything. They will manage, they'll sail through. But those children who need to be, given that little push, that little guidance, monitoring, personal supervision, they will suffer.
Okay. Because that is something which I think all of us need to think about, is that how is AI going to change every aspect of life, and life for student is something which is extremely important because that is the future of the country.
Exactly. And actually, by forcing AI upon those young, because what is AI? Artificial intelligence is ultimately created by human beings. But we are not letting those young minds develop into those brains which will further create AI. We are already telling them, you go into the background and let AI do things for you. So, in a way, that growth, that mental growth, we are hampering.
So last question before we move on to your journey as an author is that, do you think India is preparing itself to take care of this change that is undergoing and sweeping across the world, or we will be lagging behind?
I don't think we'll be lagging behind, because the strongest thing we have is young population. And when we have so much of young population and so much of brain power, there's no way that India is going to lag behind in anything. As it is, even if you see the US or you see the other countries, our Indians are in the top notch everywhere. So
Hmm.
there's no way we're going to lag behind in anything.
Okay. Okay, that's very promising and that's very good to know. So, coming to your journey as an author, How did that journey begin? What was the motivation? What was the trigger? When did you start writing? All of that is something which we would like to know from you and hear from you.
Okay. So I was into my teaching profession and traveling with my husband being in the army. And there was one book at the back of my mind. I wanted to write one novel. A story was in my mind, and I kept pushing it back. But then eventually I thought I need to get down to it. So I started writing, and in I think about 7 years, I did just 5 chapters. And it didn't go beyond that.
Mhm.
And then I lost my elder sister,
Oh.
and I realized that life is too short, and if I keep procrastinating, probably that book will never get written. So I resigned from my job, and then I finished that book, published it, and I thought that was the only book I was going to write. But I think I got hooked to the process,
Mhm.
and since then I've published 5 books, and still wanting to write many more.
Fantastic. I think that's a very interesting that aspect that you shared with us. You know, in one of, I think, the book you have mentioned, I think it's a handful of dewdrops, that in each one of us there is an author and there is a poet. I think
Yes.
something to that effect. I wanted to understand from you is that if there is a poet and author in each one of us, how do we bring it out?
We need to just give ourselves the time to express ourselves. I think many people are scared of expressing themselves. They feel that God knows how people will take it. Will they read it? Will they like it? But I think if we just express for ourselves, if we write for ourselves, then that poet or the author will come out. And eventually, there will be some soul out there who will connect to your kind of thinking, your kind of expression, your kind of writing. So the thing is to just overcome that inhibition. Because if you think that I'm going to write, then who will publish and who will read, then probably you'll never get down to writing. But if you think that I'm going to write because I love writing and I want to put my thoughts into words, then that's the best step forward.
I think that's a very helpful thought that you have shared with us. Because today, if I have to put it this way, is that for anybody today, the platforms to publish what he has written are manifold. He does not necessarily have to publish the book in physical form. He can as well upload it on the social media platforms, and there could be an audience for that.
Very true. In fact, my poetry now, which I do bilingual poetry now. So I do it only on social media. I'm not planning to make a book out of it and publish it. And I get nice responses to that, and I feel very happy. Okay, there's somebody who connects with that same thought. That is very satisfying.
I think that aspect that you mentioned, that we need to shed our inhibitions, is something I think it is very, very important. And I think that is
But
where the problem is.
it comes, yes.
Okay. So when you write for yourself or you write for your audience?
I write for myself, but yes, I do want to get that validation from people. Like I write because there's something in my mind which I want to put
Hmm.
down to paper and a story which I want to complete. But then after that, I do want people to read and probably get back to me with the criticism or appreciation, so that I know that that story connects with other people,
Hmm.
because that is very satisfying. When you do something nice, you want to show it to the world also. So I think yes, I do primarily write for myself, because I do have it in the back of mind. Okay, if nobody publishes it, never mind. I have written it because I wanted to write it. But I still hope I do send it out to publishers that do publish this book, and
Yeah.
I keep my fingers crossed. I
Hmm.
keep my fingers crossed that it will find a
Hmm.
taker and it will come out in the world. So I think both things balance.
Is it very difficult to write with audience in mind?
I think if a person wants to actually be an author, you have to keep the audience in mind.
Hmm.
Like now, when I'm writing my current books, I am trying to include the current, vocabulary, the current kind of lingo, the SMSs, shifting towards from a totally, family kind of setup, shifting to a kind of setup where there is a lot of mobile,
Hmm.
social, laptop, because that is what people will relate to.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you have to have the audience in mind somewhere. The first book I wrote, Home Run, most of the feedback which I got was that your vocabulary was too tough. Like it's no fun reading a book and looking at a dictionary all the time.
Hmm.
So then I have try to tone down my language and my vocabulary, try to make it simpler. So you have to keep the audience in mind. If the person who's going to read it is not going to like it, then what's the point?
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe I think it was influence of you as an educator. That is what was that.
Probably, yes.
And now that you are away from the profession, maybe I think you have adapted yourself to the changing times.
Exactly.
So when you write, who is the first reader of your book, or
First
it doesn't
trigger
matter?
is you. No, no, it does matter. The first thing is usually a situation, you know. And the Dalhousie murders, some time back in the newspaper, I had written about, I had read about three boys, school boys, who had a fight and over a wristwatch. And two of them smashed the other's skull with a stone. It was a very gruesome thing. It happened somewhere in the NCR only. It stayed in my mind. So when I started writing Dalhousie murders, that was at the back of my mind, and I kept thinking that what could actually lead to boys becoming so aggressive, and
Mm,
could that be the only reason, or could there be any other reason? And then writer's imagination takes off.
mm,
So from that trigger, I created that book. Though that is a very minor point, but yes, I started from there. So there has to be some that that thing spark,
mm.
which then takes you on to that journey.
Okay. I completely agree. Is that finally for you to start writing, there has to be some spark, some trigger somewhere, some incident which stays in your mind, and then you develop on that. So when you write and you are about to go ahead and publish the book, is there someone specific person to whom you give it to read so that he can read and give you feedback, or you straight send it to the publisher?
I send it straight to the publisher.
Okay.
But till now, that's what I've been doing. But now my son tells me that in your mystery murders, I can give you some good tips. So please
Okay.
send them to me before you send it to the publisher. I'll tell you where you can make it better. So I'm thinking probably the next one, I'll send it to him. But
Okay.
till now, I've sent it straight to the publisher, close to my heart, and then straight to the publisher.
Okay, okay. So your book Contentment Chronicles, it's not about the armed forces in battlefield, but it's about their wives and children and their family part of the life. Why did you select that particular aspect to write your book?
Okay. So, there is so much written about the army and the heroes and the martyrs and the so many books on all the missions and everything that has been done. There's a lot on it. But I felt that somehow the wives and the
Hmm,
families,
hmm,
their contribution has always been in the shadows.
hmm,
And generally, when I talk to people, even outside the army, the opinion is that, oh, army wives have a very nice, cushy life. They just dress up and they go for parties and kitty parties and meets and all that. That's all there is. It's fun. So I wanted to break that myth because it's a very challenging life for the wives and the children as well. I have lived in a place where we did not get running water. There was no piped water.
hmm,
And the water was filled in barrels, which would freeze in the winters. You had to
hmm.
break the ice, then
Oh,
heat it on a angiti, and then use that water.
oh,
I've studied in a place, I gave my class 10 board from a place where we did not have electricity. So in
oh.
the evenings, Petromaxes were used. And then,
Mhm,
so, that aspect nobody knows.
hmm,
And so many challenges, so many difficulties, and yet all these ladies, they just face them without batting an eyelid.
hmm.
And the first story came from one of my colleagues who told me a very interesting tale in how she fought a very tough battle when a son 2 3 year old son got bitten by a snake, and her husband was not around. None of the officers were around. Everybody was out on an exercise. So
Hmm.
that instigated, that started me on this concept, that why don't I write stories about these people? And so I got so many of them from so many people. They
Yeah.
narrated them, I wrote them in my own words, and that's how this book came about.
Okay, very interesting. And I completely agree is that that's a aspect of armed forces that is not in limelight. And as you rightly said, is that people think that it's just good life that they are enjoying. So
Yes.
very good that you did that. So what was the response when you published that book, particularly from your friends in the army?
They loved it. They all, I mean, everybody wanted to not only buy the book and read it, but after that they said, we also have stories to tell. So if you do a sequel, then please include our narrative in that. So that was very, very encouraging. And then, of course, Kala was nice enough to choose the book for an award, which really made me convinced that yes, this book was worth writing. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, I got an Arthropod book
Yeah.
award also for this. So that added to my conviction that this book
Mm-hmm.
had to be written.
Mm-hmm. So, just now you mentioned, so are you planning a sequel to that since we have so many more stories now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, not exactly on the same lines. I do have something in mind,
Mm.
but on a slightly different tangent. Again, cantonment stories, but I'll not reveal what the theme
Okay.
is. Not about just the women, but something a little more on a romantic angle.
Okay.
The
Okay.
romance in the cantonments.
The cantonment. I
So
think that
let's
will
see
be
when
very
that happens.
interesting.
Right now, I should be. Again, true stories from different people. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have, I think, a lot many stories since you have lived all your life in cantonments. So you would
yes,
be having.
and I'm three generations. My father was in the army, my husband, and now my son and son-in-law.
Oh,
So it's all olives, olives for me.
oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you just now mentioned about the awards that you got for this book. How important is for an author, or for that matter, even a poet, to receive a public recognition and to receive an award? How does it help an author?
I think like I said, the biggest thing is the validation that yes, your writing is worth something. But
Mm,
then there are so many awards. Like, in the beginning, when I used to scroll, I used to say people are getting so many awards. Then I realized many of the awards are paid awards.
mm,
You pay a certain amount and then they send you a certificate and they send you a nice picture of yourself with the thing award. I realized they're not worth it. But if you get
mm,
a genuine award,
mm.
I think it's the best thing that can happen to an author because it makes you want to do more.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think a genuine appreciation to anyone makes a big difference, and it's a big motivator.
Yes.
So, the other book that I wanted to talk to you about was the ENQ mantra. I wanted to
Yeah.
understand, what does that ENQ mean?
Okay. In fact, when my publisher told me that, people are going to get confused with this ENQ. What is this ENQ? So, ENQ is the energy quotient. This book is about your inner energy and how
Okay.
it connects with the cosmic energy. So, usually we identify those five quotients, that is the physical, the mental, emotional, intellectual. And this one is on the fifth one, that is the energy quotient, which is the most important. Even the Gita says that your inner energy is what is most powerful.
Yes.
So the ENQ mantra is basically about how to uh, uplift your inner energy and bring it in sync with the cosmic energy.
Okay. So, how did you go about preparing yourself for this book? Meaning, this is a completely different topic altogether, and I'm sure it would have
Hanji.
required some amount of research for you to write about it.
A lot of research. In fact, if you see the cover, you realize this book is co-authored by me and my husband. So he's my research partner.
Okay.
He's deeply into meditation and yoga and studying about astrology and Vedic scriptures. So he did all the research. And I was into Reiki and tarot reading. So when I used to discuss Reiki with him, he told me that Reiki is not something you've learned from the Japanese or the Chinese. It's very much there in our own Vedas.
Okay.
And that's how we started discussing these aspects. And from that his research, I wrote this
Okay.
book.
Okay. That's very interesting collaboration.
Haji.
Very interesting. So maybe in future also there could be something more with both of you contributing.
We are thinking of, because he's very much into astrology also. So
Okay.
I'm trying to tell him that, give me enough material on astrology which is different from what everything else is there in the market, and
Okay.
then let's work on that. So let's see if that happens sometime.
We'll be very eagerly awaiting that.
Thank
So,
you.
the other aspect of yours is that you are a poet also. So we'd like to know from you, and maybe if it's possible for you to recite a poem for all our audiences.
Oh my God. I wish you had mentioned that earlier. You'll have to give
That's
me a
the
minute
surprise
to
element.
find. You'll have to just give me a minute to
Yeah,
find
yeah.
my something from my. Uh, I these days do bilingual poetry,
Okay.
and I'll just try to. find out if I have something on my thing. Poetry has been my fascination since school days. When I was in school,
Mm,
for the magazine, they would tell us to write something, give a article or something for the magazine, and poetry I found was easier because it took less time. So
okay,
that's how I started writing poetry. But now I do it for the love of poetry. And okay, I found one.
okay.
This poem, it's bilingual, and it was inspired by this war. First we had this Ukraine war, and then we had this U.S. and Iran war. So I titled it the reoccurring Mahabharat,
Mm,
and it goes like this: Who rolls the dice? The emperors in royal courts, generals in their barricaded rooms, the presidents and leaders. पासा फेंकते हैं फिर दुर्योधन और शकुनी, कल के राजा आज के नेता.
mm,
And who pays the price? The unborn child, the bereft wife, the heartbroken mother, the soldier who knows not why he fights. फिर गंधारी ने खो दिए बेटे, फिर परीक्षित गर्भ में हुआ अनाथ, फिर कर्ण और अभिमन्यु को देनी पड़ी आहुति. What survives? Reinforced bunkers, atomic arsenals and nuclear plants, and miles of black burnt earth. खून से काली रणभूमि और खंडरों की सौगात. What gets sacrificed? Schools and shrines, homes and hospitals, and fields of wheat and rice. घर बिखरे, घरौंदे टूटे, घायल हुई वसुंधरा. Who gains? Maniacs and dictators, blind men in a mute world. खुद से आगे ना देख पाने वाले, धृतराष्ट्र एक नहीं अनेक हैं यहाँ. Who loses? Humanity, crushed and cast aside, like a lifeless rag doll. एक धर्म युद्ध के आड़े अधर्म हर बार होते रहे. This is what I had written for.
Fantastic, and I must compliment you for bringing about this aspect of Mahabharat and current situation. That's, I think, something which is absolutely 100% true, is that we are
Thank,
actually living that part and with that much more destruction. So
thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much for reciting that poem for all our audiences.
That was the first one which came on my scroll. So I said,
Thank you so much. So now, what is it that we should expect from you in next 24 months?
I have two books in the pipeline. One is a historical fiction, which is almost near completion, and the other is it's a non-fiction, and it is can be a combination of non-fiction and memoir, self-help,
Okay.
because it is. I cannot reveal more than that till
Ah,
it gets published. Actually, so,
we,
so
we
both of
will
them in
wait
the
for that.
pipeline.
We'll wait for that. We'll wait for that.
Let's.
So there is lot that we have to look forward from you in next 24 months and period time beyond that also. So
Yes, definitely.
Devika ji is here and she, I think, wants to ask you one question. Devika ji,
Yes.
you can unmute yourself and ask that question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anita ji, it was wonderful listening to you and your author journey and your writing journey. I wanted to
Thank.
ask you one thing. Uh, in this noisy world where publishing, everybody is publishing, every second writer is publishing their book. How do you maintain, or how does a writer maintain their unique voice and brand?
Actually, Devika, that is the biggest challenge, because with all this self publishing and hybrid publishing that has come up, there are so many books in the market, and every topic, every aspect is being, literally beaten to death with so many people writing on them. But I feel if you just follow your own heart, be write what you are convinced about. Don't see the market, don't see what people are writing, what is selling, what is not selling. Just write what you are firmly convinced with. Then I'm sure your voice will find its own place in this global world of books.
Thank you. And like I have also tried both. I have tried both self and traditional publishing. Traditional publishing actually takes a lot of time because sometimes after 6, 8 months you may not receive a reply. But the
Yes.
writer, an aspiring writer, wants the work to get out. How does someone beat this anxiety?
Devika, what I feel is that once you have your book in mind and you start working on it, do the first three chapters very diligently and make them perfect. And then with those three chapters, send your pitch to the publisher. And then keep writing the rest of the book because that is going to take you another 4 5 months. Hopefully, by that time, a publisher will respond to you. But if you complete the book, edit it, get it ready, and then send it, and then wait for the next 8 or 10 months, that is very painful. So work the first three chapters because that is what they asked for initially, and fine tune them as best as you can. Make a perfect letter pitch and send it to all the publishers, and then keep continuing your book.
I think that's a very sound
Thank
advice
you.
that you are giving.
Thank you.
All budding authors will really be benefited by that. So, Anita ji, as part of the show, we also have a rapid fire round. So, I am sure you are going to enjoy that.
I'm
So,
sure.
should we start?
Definitely.
The first question, a very simple one. Army life or civilian life? Which one will you prefer?
Army life, any day.
Army.
Army life, all my lives.
Second question, I think that also is very easy. Delhi or Dehradun?
Dehradun.
Dehradun. I expected as much. Choose one. Being an author or being an educator?
An author.
An author. Okay.
I really wish I had started earlier.
We also thought that way. Is that you should have started earlier. There would have been at least 10 more books.
Yes.
So, your favorite author or a poet?
My favorite author is Louisa M. Alcott. She wrote Little Women, and my father presented that book to me when I was in, I think, class six. It
Okay.
has been my favorite book, and it was so grounded in reality. I think that is what a book needs, where you can
Hmm.
relate to every character.
Hmm.
So that is
Hmm.
my favorite book of all times.
Okay. So, complete the sentence. Teaching is
Teaching is a stress buster. When I get into a classroom, I'm in love with what I'm doing.
perfect. I think that was the most appropriate answer anyone can give for this particular aspect. So, congratulations. You have won the rapid fire round 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
So, with this, we come to an end of today's episode of The Show. That was Aneeta Sharma with all her experience as an educator and as an author, sharing her journey and talking about both these aspects of her life. And that was really interesting and engrossing. Thank you so much, Anita ji, for coming on the show.
Thank
So
you, Mr. Vardhan, for giving me the time. Thank you so much.
it's our privilege. So. So that was Anita ji for all of us. The This brings us to the closure of today's episode. And as I had said earlier, the episode is recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube channel of Kala at Sanjay Chandra 5376. If any one of you have missed any part of the recording, please do visit and also to listen to all our other earlier conversations. With that, we come to the end and have a great time and enjoy your Sunday evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.